This is courtesy of Pro Football Rumors. Okay, it says mobility a key factor in the Browns QB competition. One of the more intriguing position battles to watch this offseason has been in Cleveland, where recovering veteran Deshaun Watson and second-year passer Shedeur Sanders have been competing for the starting job. New head coach Todd Monken hasn't been too descriptive so far on what exactly he's looking for, but a recent report from Zach Jackson of The Athletic indicates that Monken wants a mobile quarterback.
Nobody saw this coming. Not the Cleveland media, not the analysts sitting behind their desks, and definitely not the people who spent the last year burying Shedeur Sanders, because one report just blew the whole quarterback race wide open. A detail so simple, yet so damaging, that it's forcing everyone to rethink who actually deserves that Browns jersey in Week 1. But what happens next exposes a gap between these two quarterbacks that Cleveland fans were not ready to hear about.
Mobility is going to be a big deal. So, is Deshaun able to still showcase that mobility after the Achilles, after all of these injuries? You haven't really seen him run. Shedeur Sanders last year, while he played, actually had better running numbers than Deshaun Watson during his stint in Cleveland. And you've seen the training videos of Shedeur Sanders running, doing sprints, working on that mobility, because that is going to be a big part of this job, as Todd Monken has laid out. Okay, so Todd Monken let it be known he wants a mobile guy. Here it says, recognizing Monken's desire for mobility, one can only look back and note how spoiled he was working with Lamar Jackson in the last 3 years.
Todd Monken didn't come out and call anybody out by name. He didn't have to, because the second word got out about what he wants from his starting quarterback, everything changed. Mobility. That's the word. That's the whole battle right there. And once you understand why, you'll understand exactly why this competition is not as close as people think. Here's where things get crazy. Deshaun Watson is the obvious mobile option. That's what everybody assumed walking into this offseason. But here's the problem nobody wants to talk about. Watson hasn't looked anything like his Houston self in years. Multiple injuries, multiple setbacks, and through all of it, fans still haven't seen the burst that made him dangerous. Now pay attention to this. Last season, in just 8 games as a rookie, Shedeur Sanders actually posted better rushing numbers than Watson did during his entire stretch in Cleveland. Let that sink in. A rookie, 8 games, outperforming a former 5-time Pro Bowler on the ground? That's not even the most shocking part. For over a year, the story on Shedeur was that he couldn't move, that he was a pocket statue, that he'd get exposed the second an NFL pass rush got near him. So explain this. Sanders is out there right now grinding through sprint work, refining his footwork, showing real improvement from what he displayed back at Colorado. Meanwhile, the guy who's supposed to be the mobile answer at quarterback is the one nobody's actually watched move since the surgery. Here's where the media's argument completely falls apart. The mobility gap people warned you about with Shedeur, it might not even be his problem anymore.
Okay, and then in reference to Shedeur said in his short 8-game rookie sample, Sanders showed an improved mobility to what he displayed at Colorado, if just barely in college. Sacks count as negative rushing yards against quarterbacks. He ended up with 2 seasons with the Buffaloes of 50 to 70 more sack yards than rushing yards. He stayed positive in that category last year with the Browns, and of his 169 rushing yards, 8 outweighed his 164 yards lost to sacks. Essentially, what we've seen is that Sanders is willing to take the open yardage when it's given.
Let's talk about sack yardage, because this is where it gets real. In college, Shedeur had multiple seasons where sacks cost him more yards than his scrambles ever gained him back. But last year, in the pros, he flipped that script. His rushing yards actually outweighed the yards he lost to sacks. That's growth. That's development. That's a young quarterback learning in real time how to survive behind an NFL offensive line. And what happened next left analysts stunned, because insiders are now openly admitting Shedeur isn't just keeping up, he's evolving faster than expected. Now here's the part nobody wants to say out loud. There's a theory floating around that some in the Cleveland Browns don't want Shedeur to win this job outright. Not yet. Not this fast. Why? Because if a rookie beats out a former franchise quarterback with a fully guaranteed contract, that's an organizational admission. That's a mistake with a price tag attached. So instead, you get analysts hedging, insiders saying let's not get carried away, reporters reminding you that meeting the coach in the hallway doesn't mean anything. But strip away the spin and ask yourself this: why does every conversation about Shedeur come with a disclaimer? Let's lay out exactly what's been said, because the receipts matter. One veteran NFL insider admitted flat out, if this competition is close, the job should go to Shedeur, not because of hype, because of the reasons that actually matter in a building. He's younger, he's cheaper, and his ceiling is higher. Another insider raised the health question about Watson directly. Can he even stay on the field, and can he be consistent when he does? Those aren't hit piece questions. Those are the same questions Browns coaches are asking behind closed doors right now. Here's where things get crazy again. Even people trying to stay neutral on this competition keep landing in the same place. Sanders gives this team a longer runway to grow into a franchise quarterback. Watson gives them uncertainty wrapped around a very expensive contract.
So I think Shedeur was in the building a lot more before April 7th got here. They were both in the building a ton. And then, Watson was back in the building last week. I don't even know if the coaches are in the building. I mean, this is a downtime for the coaches. So, it's good that he's working out. It's good that he's got a Browns helmet on, and it looked like there were a couple receivers that he was throwing to that were Browns guys. It's certainly, there's no downside to it. I just think we have to be careful about getting carried away.
Browns fans have been burned before. Everyone knows the history. So when word spreads that Shedeur's been putting in extra work in the building, throwing to actual Browns receivers, grinding through the parts of his game people said he lacked, fans notice. And when word spreads that nobody's even sure what Watson's doing behind the scenes, fans notice that too. One insider tried to downplay it, insisting fan reaction isn't supposed to factor into who starts. But be honest, in a city that's watched this quarterback position get mishandled for years, do you really believe emotion isn't part of this equation? Because that's not even the most shocking part. Here's the phrase that should stop every Browns fan in their tracks: room for subjectivity. That's the exact language used by people close to this situation. Translation: this isn't a stat sheet decision. It's a feel decision, and feel decisions in the NFL almost always tilt toward the guy who represents the future. A 30-year-old quarterback with a long, complicated injury history versus a 20-something with untapped ceiling in improving mobility. Which one sounds like a coach's long-term investment? Which one sounds like a short-term patch? So here we are. Todd Monken wants mobility. Watson's mobility is a question mark. Shedeur's mobility is trending up. Monken wants consistency. Watson's inconsistency has followed him through his entire Browns tenure. Shedeur is still writing his first real chapter. Whether you love Shedeur Sanders or you can't stand him, one thing is becoming impossible to deny. Every single time the league tries to write him off, he finds another way to make people believe. And in a league that chews up rookies and spits them out, that might be the most dangerous thing of all. This quarterback competition in Cleveland is no longer about who's more talented. It's about who the Browns are actually building toward. And if the numbers, the reports, and the insiders are telling the truth, that answer might already be staring Cleveland right in the face. If this breakdown opened your eyes to what's really happening in Cleveland, hit that subscribe button right now, because this quarterback battle is only getting started, and you do not want to miss what comes next.